Do that yell a little more.
Yes.
It's like music to my ears.
I'm here to burst all of your fucking bubbles.
Yes.
Mr. Midnight Movie. You're no good, man. You're no good.
I'm here to burst all of your fucking bubbles.
Are you trained in the nut gargling?
Yes.
You put them in, they go.
Yes.
Man,
Truth about America, baby.
you're no good. Man, you're no good, man. You're no good. It's like music to my ears. Music to my ears. Man.
Yes.
Did you guys say you missed the high five ghost?
Yes.
You're no good, man. You're no good.
You know what a money shot is?
Music to my ears. You're no good, man.
Truth about America, baby.
Jewish
Come
producer.
on, Nick.
Jewish
Come
producer.
on, Nick.
We here at Rocket would like to take a moment to correct some gross misapprehensions about our radio show. We're nothing but hackers on steroids,
Yes.
a group bent on hate.
Yes. Jewish
Come on,
producer.
Nick.
It's like music to my ears.
Jewish
Come on,
producer.
Nick.
It's like music to my ears. Music to my ears.
Yes.
You gotta smoke weed during a midnight movie. Popcorn, some fucking goobers. Come on.
Twizzlers.
On.
Twizzlers. Twizzlers. Twizzlers.
And we made him.
Music to my ears.
Alright, shut the fuck up. Everyone picked up their popcorn to the screen and went, I can't believe it's not butter.
Oh boy. Whoa, boy.
That is a blast from the past.
That is a way deep in the past.
I don't know if I cared to revisit that on this show, but we decided to do it anyway in a just a revamping of some of the things I've done in the past. The vulgarity, the degenerates, or the degenerate.
You are what you are. Don't deny it. And we had a lot more fun in those times, but these days it seems like some of the fun has been, I don't know, ignored or put away. I don't know, but somehow we must be able to access our fun. Welcome to Transparency and Merit. I'm JP. I'm here with Brian, and we're applying a veneer of stoicism over this show. What's going on, Brian?
Well, you know what? I'm always trying to basically get in touch with my emotions so I perhaps can better control them. And you know what? Sometimes I get a little too eager to explain my position, and that ends up hurting me to a degree. And I think I've been accused of a lot of things, and I think to a degree people have been misunderstood me because I don't think they take the time to really grasp what I'm talking about and grasp the situation at hand of the things that I'm talking about. Now, there are people that may not agree or even believe in what I'm saying, but I think if most people took the time to listen to what I say and hear what I say, I think that they would start to agree with most of it, if not all of it. And there are a few people that won't agree with any of it, like who are just, who cannot handle hard truths. Because for me, I point out some very hard and difficult truths, and I'll agree with hard and difficult truths. And I think that for a society to flourish and to be its best, hard truths have to be realized on all ends. And I don't think people are willing to do that at this point, or at least the people in power don't want us to do that. And there are people who are so offended and so emotional. I think the powers that be are allowing the emotionally unstable to make a lot of rules. And if you don't want to hear it or listen to it, that's one thing. But there are a lot of people who, if they hear my opinions or other opinions that they don't like, they'll try to deplatform them. And I think that's completely wrong. Like they're threatened by my opinion and my ideas. I wonder if you have a comment on what I just said. And, there was an argument between me and my favorite person on Discord, me and Scott, although Dennis tended to ramble in from time to time. Joe, do you have any comment about what I have said?
I think that you've always kind of relied on other people's ability to hear you out. And it seems, while it works probably more often than not with people our age, we're dinosaurs, but our age and up are probably more willing to hear your side of things and hear it out. Younger generations have a general lack of they don't have time for older people, basically, is what essentially it comes down to. And so they're going to make up their minds real quick. And if they don't like what they hear, they're going to, not only will they, kind of typecast, but they'll also try to tear you down. And if you let them, and that's unfortunate. I'm saying that because I've seen it more than the exceptions to those rules. Maybe not rules, but it's a generality, and I see that a lot, and I see it a lot less frequently, where younger people actually take the time to kind of hear some ideals out and kind of take the time to process it and start in maybe it's just a sign of the times. Just things just seem to be so much quicker than they are. So people kind of jump to conclusions, perhaps. I'm not sure if that's what's happening with you, but from my observations, it seems people are a little quick to judge. I don't know if you agree with that at all.
Well, I think, a lot of people are quick to judge, and they have an opinion, and that is, and if they hear anything different than that, there are certain views that they have stuck in their mind, and if they hear anything that goes against the narrative, they go ape shit, and they cannot get past how they're, that their sensibilities, their faith, or their, and they take it as a faith and a religion, and if you go against that faith and religion, they'll take it very offensively. A lot of the woke anti-racist stuff is a faith and is a religion, and it's touched a lot of people. And a lot of people, if you say things that go against that narrative, and you tell stories and things that go against that narrative, people will get, at this stage of the game, will get very upset, and it's a very intolerant time. And I feel that people like Scott exacerbate that difficult time. And I believe that we are in a culture war in this country. And I don't know who's going to win that culture war. Not only do I think we're in a culture war in this country, but throughout the world, throughout the noble and what I consider to be. I know you have a different definition of that, or you want to go to the root to that, but of the civilized and decent world, we are really going through a true culture war in this country, and one side seems to have control over the messaging of that, and their messaging is deceit, delusion, downplaying of certain things and certain facts, and the facts at times becomes very uncomfortable. Things like crime, things like abuse, become very uncomfortable topics for people, and they just want to shut those things down and shut them out. And in my opinion, you're either a person that can handle hard truths, even opinions. If these hard truths are not truths, then you should prove them otherwise. You have the burden of, if you're going to be that upset, show me. Don't just tell me, but show me. Show me how what I believe to be is wrong. And when people talk about a nation of like turning America from a white supremacy nation to a nation of justice, well, when people say things like that, I say, well, why don't you show me a nation in practice that we can look to? Show me it in practice, and I don't give a hoot what you say. If you can't show it in practice, then you're just talking a game. You've never stepped out into the field and showed how your plays go in action. And that's what I feel about a lot of the people who rage me. And the one who rages me the most is Scott. He rages at me and is upset with me usually the most. Dune is kind of a troll, and he's not that passionate, but Scott is in a lot of ways. Anyway, that's about it. And I wanted to say we have Donning Armor is back again. He goes, ahoy, gents. And Donning Armor. Yeah, geez. Anyway, Joe, do you have anything else to add on that? Because I'll go into a different subject.
No, I think we've beaten that horse silly. But what else do you got on deck?
Well,
wait.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about kind of, how younger generations, how they react sometimes to, even with me, with my approach to explaining things, or trying to get certain things off of my chest. And I had one conversation today with someone online, or on my phone, and I got called a lot of names. I got called a lot of things in a very short period of time that weren't true. So it's unbelievable. I was told I overthink. I was called a liar. I was put down in more ways than what's imaginable in just short conversation, and it was all kind of, from my perspective, nothing was nothing fit. It didn't. It seemed like the accusations were from a lack of communication rather than me saying things that merited that sort of reaction. So these things happen, and it's frustrating, and we have to kind of just hold our heads up and continue our march to be able to release and let go of what it is that we need to get out. And I think we're doing a pretty good job, at least. I mean, you're really kind of stoking the fires. You're doing this every day, and that's what it takes, and that's very motivating. So it's a good thing. Anyways, that's it about that. What else do you have?
Well, we are in a culture war right now, and I was right now the West Side Story has been, Steven Spielberg remade it, and for whatever reason they're calling it West Side Story woke, and now it makes me, perhaps I might go out and see it on Sunday, just because I may want to do a show, because there is a difference between the liberals of the 1950s and early 1960s, and then the liberals of the late 1960s, and the liberals of the 70s became leftist, and the left of the 80s became even a little bit worse. And then the 90s, you really had it, the woke, where you saw basically the late 80s and 90s, you saw the woke culture, the political correctness kind of take hold. And now it's not only taken hold in academia, but it has completely taken hold of much of corporate culture. And I believe that we're seeing things now, and how cinema and our culture do change things and perceptions on what we see, and how we see it, and how we view life. And it's and this is, by the way, has been done throughout the time of when they've done plays, and then cinema became even more so of kind of making things up and not being real. And maybe Western culture makes a lot of myths out there. A lot of Westerns are basically myths. The fact that a lot of people think that back in the West, two men would go out and face each other with their 6 guns by their side and get ready to draw or duel. And that's something that rarely, if ever, happened in the Old West. It did happen, but they just made that kind of a mainstay. And yeah, I think that and then there were the gangster films, there were the myths kind of regarding that. And I think that there are a lot of these hood, these hood movies. There are, I do believe that there are myths with regards to that. And I would almost do a film about myths, and I would probably end on the hood movies and the racial movies, because I think there's a lot of mythology out there that still goes around, and we have never gotten to a place in cinema, or very few times have we gotten into a place of cinema where we are in a real place. And that's one of the things I'd kind of like to see and do, but and I don't know how to get there and do it, but I've only seen like a few films where it's like just real in a raw, in just a raw fashion. I'll leave that to you, Joe, because you're by the way, and just recently, your views on cinema has changed. There was a film that you really loved at one time or another, but now you don't.
Hmm. Yeah. Once I started looking into the politics and the directors and just what it was they were doing and what the message overall, the bigger message was. Forget about the details of the story. It really comes down to what were these directors trying to, what agenda was being achieved with the release of these movies. And why was there a movie like 2001 released in whatever that was, 1968 or something? We've seen nothing like it since. Why don't we? Why are? Yeah, I mean, who's greenlighting the garbage that gets produced and released nowadays? I'm not sure. It's such a disgusting culture in Hollywood. But now I've had to revisit a lot of these movies. 2001 used to be one of my favorite movies, and now I'm kind of sickened by the overall. It took me a long time to better understand the meanings, the symbolism, and everything that we're bombarded with in a film kind of produces a reaction. And I think that that movie is especially sickening when I think about all these things, the tie-ins, and that's literally there's enough in 2001 and Stanley Kubrick in general for many shows, but eventually we'll get a chance to do some shows on movies, and we'll be able to talk about that in a lot more detail. And there's a lot of other films too and directors that kind of caught my eye, and I did the deep dive, and I came out feeling a little dirty from everything I'd seen. So I'd definitely like to talk about those things sooner or later.
Well, I just wanted to hit in the, on some of these documentaries, in particular, Michael Moore, his first film, Roger and Me. The whole entire film, Roger, I forget the guy's, last name, but he was Roger. He was the, I guess the head of, I don't know if it was Chrysler or one of these big auto companies in Flint, Michigan, and the town was suffering. And Michael was trying to see if he could get an interview with him. And he would always refuse.
You're talking about Roger Smith.
Roger Smith, that's correct. And he would always refuse. Cut to a couple years later, find out there was an interview with Roger Smith and Michael Moore. And it was a very contentious interview. And Roger Smith was like, "What do you mean? I don't like to fire people, but I have investors that I have to look out for. And I have people that I have to contend with. I'll tell you what I'd like. I'd like to do a documentary on someone trying to interview some of these reporters. How about Oprah and me, and ask her some questions about certain subjects, or even what the hell's her name? Jane Elliott, the one who did the brown-eyed, blue-eyed experiment. I'd love to ask her a few questions about her experiment and her behavior and other things. And then Robin DiAngelo. How about Robin and Me? I'd love to ask her a few, Robin DiAngelo, the woman who wrote the book White Fragility. Love for someone on the conservative side to interview her. See what she has to say. See if what she says can stand up to scrutiny. How about somebody interview Brian Stelter? Now, we put out the feelers out there, and I've worked in Hollywood too. Hollywood is very anti-white and very toxic. Yes, it is, and it's gotten more so. By the way, it's very, very anti-white, very anti-European descent, and this is not just true in America. Kind of true in the Anglosphere, in London and Canada as well. Do you have any comments on that, Joey?
No, other than I've been in the industry too. I spent some years in Hollywood, and wow, I left there with a pretty loaded opinion of it all. I ran fast and far from it when I had the chance.
Well, I know when my father was in Hollywood. He came back from Germany in 1970, and he went to the school Lawrence Merrick. He was an Israeli who set up an acting and film school, and my father got to that class on the GI Bill. And when he joined the Screen Actors Guild, and he was with the other people, when Reagan won, the left just went absolutely nuts. And now but it's nothing compared to what happened when Trump won. When Trump won, Hollywood just lost its shit, basically. And now it's just become a shit show of people's opinions. And again, love to ask these individuals some questions and see if they can answer them. Of course, I don't think they would. Roger Ailes, not Roger Ailes, but Roger Smith was actually, he was willing to do an interview. These other people, and that's the deception. Roger and Me, the whole thing, the whole premise was these elites, these corporate right-wing elites, don't want to do an interview. When in reality, it is the left-wing elites that do not want to interview and do not want to have their views challenged. And I know that there are people out there who say that I'm too much on the left-right dichotomy, but in my opinion, this is left. It's woke leftism, and it will not be challenged. And you cannot, anytime you try to challenge it, you will get shut down immediately. And that's my personal opinion on that. And this is whether it be a filmmaker or a reporter or a billionaire. No. So do you have any comment on that, Joey?
No. Let's go.
All right. So are there any films that you've seen recently, Joe, that have basically made you think, or any thoughtful documentaries that have made you think recently?
I'll be honest. I don't think there is a documentary that's been released by a big studio or any level studio for that matter. I think they all fit into a narrative. They all are censored. They are all of extreme bias, and it's kind of sad, but there's so much control over the messages that get put out through media that there's very little shot of deriving much truth from any of it. So I do avoid documentaries now, sadly. Used to be one of my favorite genres of film, but unfortunately, there are no documentaries that are going to help educate. That's about it for that. Sorry, documentaries are bullshit. Don't pay attention. What are you giggling at? Are you laughing? Or are you not? Brian, I'm talking to you.
I'm listening. I was actually texting Liz back.
Uh-huh.
I just wanted to mention the last movie I actually really enjoyed was There Will Be Blood. Now I wonder if Donning Armor.
By the way, that was a real answer of mine. All documentaries are fully controlled, and you could still catch some, people. There's some people out there creating really interesting documentaries at a very independent level. For some reason, those don't gain a whole lot of traction financially, and just they don't get the big time numbers. But there are some documentaries that you could find, and you're just not going to find them from any of the bigger studios. Any of those big release documentaries are all fully controlled. So that's a legit answer from me. But
how about the documentary Seven and Up? Do you remember that one?
No. What is it?
It follows children like 7 years, every 7 years, from 7, and then every 7 years they go back to them. Really kind of interesting, and it just shows their lives and stuff. So that there's really, I don't think, much of a political agenda on that. I wonder what Donning's view of American History X. I liked the film, but I also found the film to be, even though it was well done, to be not real. I mean, like, there were parts of it that were not realistic at all. And I might go into that later, but there are scenes in there that, even though they're well done, do not ring true.
Which movie are you talking about? American
History X.
Oh, yeah. I'd like to hear what scenes you're talking about.
Well, the basketball scene in particular, there is no way that blacks in Venice Beach, when they're playing basketball, would ever tolerate, at that time, any kind of neo-Nazis hanging around them. Maybe in the 70s, but by the 1990s or late 1980s, there's no way they would have been. And now, no way. Like now, no way could they would be very much attacked and shown the door. No way could you, like, have somebody with any kind of Nazi paraphernalia on their body. They would be shown the door. Like there would be violence immediately. And that part didn't ring true, even though it was well done. Well, we got Donning Armor. Donning,
have you ever seen this movie really quickly? Reservation Dogs.
No, Reservoir Dogs, I think she meant. But no.
No, I asked. She's saying Reservation Dogs.
It's Reservoir Dogs. It's not Reservation Dogs.
Talking about a different movie, though.
No. I haven't seen that movie. Reservation Dogs. No, I thought you was talking, but it was directed, I guess, by is that a Japanese name? Now, I was going to ask you about American History X and what you thought about that film, if anything, or if you've seen it.
Okay, well, I wasn't going to call in. I don't, this is your guys' show. But when you mentioned that movie, I just had to. When the movie came out originally, that was back when I was a young man and very angry. And um, I suppose some things don't change. I was very interested in race, but it was only because I had to get in so many fights and live that lifestyle. And I went there to get a sense of white pride. But really, what the film does is disgusting, vile, and anti-white. Uh, it was not what I expected. What I can say about the movie, wasn't it? I believe it was directed by a gay Jew. I don't know if that's the case, so I could be wrong on that, but I think it is. And
Are we talking about Howard? I'm kidding.
yeah, and it's just a very anti-white film. And if you notice, if you actually go back and look at the film, it was well done. It was well done. However, everything that the main character says, the what's his name, the actor's name from that film, I cannot recall it.
Is it Norton? Oh,
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Yes, Edward Norton. Everything that he says in the film is absolutely 100% true. But he's made to be the bad guy, and he is in certain regards. Obviously, does some terrible things, but everything that he says is absolutely true. They'll call it, um, white supremacist talking points or something like that, but factually, it is true. And then he ends up, obviously going to prison and getting. Well, I don't want to put out spoilers in case anybody hasn't seen the film, but raped in the he gets raped. So and then I don't know. I had very strong when the film came out. I went there because I was an angry young man, and I wanted uh, I wanted to see. I'm glad I didn't go down that path. Let's just put it that way. But the film is very much anti-white, and kind of disgusts me now, as most films do. When I worked in Hollywood, I was an extra, and you could just see it all around you. And I think you're right. It has gotten far, far worse, and I'll drop with that.
Yeah, well, and that film, by the way, is not the worst of the SJW. I mean, it's actually somewhat balanced to a degree compared to like a film like Higher Learning, which is the most. I think Higher Learning is the most SJW film, mainstream film that I've ever seen, and it is a piece of crap. I think rest in peace, John Singleton. But I think that John Singleton made a lot of hyperbolic nonsense. I mean, with his most hyperbolic film, Higher Learning, which was just a piece of dung. And I actually did when I had my inflammatory talk page, I actually railed against that film. And yeah, but and again, most films have an agenda, and even documentaries have their views to them. Now, you said you saw There Will Be Blood, and I like that film as well, but God, I found that film like depressing in the end, and I just I don't know. I thought the guy was not a good person, basically. Angela, how are you? Did you want to add anything to our conversation here?
Well, about documentaries, I watched the JFK Revisited, where I tried to watch it all the way through. I couldn't.
Bunch of lies.
But parts of it were compelling. And Reservation Dogs is a series, I think it's on Hulu, filmed in Oklahoma. It's a lot of good humor and like coming of age type of thing, but more than that, about the Native American culture.
More
So
lies.
it was funny. I know the director that directed it. That sounds so well, anyway. But the 13th, I think, was very important for the social justice warriors. There's a lot of documentaries in the last 5 years that have had a direct impact on society. What do you think?
You know, it's funny you mentioned the movie Reservation Dogs about Native Americans and the reservations. There has been kind of a view on Native American culture and Indian where it's either they're, I don't want to say either they're, just this, they're used as an afterthought in the original Westerns, and then they're sometimes used as just, victims when it was far more complex, and in some ways they were actually very savage. There's a film called, I think it's called Alzano's Raid with Burt Lancaster, which really shows the brutality of the Comanche. And I forget his name, but he was an activist. I mean, he was not an activist, but he was an Indian realist, and he talked about the Comanche. He was part Comanche and part German.
Russell Means?
No, he. I think his name was David Eagerly.
Oh, okay.
He said what people forget is that the Comanche was for the Comanche. He wasn't for any other Indian. He wasn't for the Cheyenne. He wasn't for the Chickasaw or the Choctaw or the what's the
Well, all those different tribes are different nations, and they have their own platform, their own, how they like to conduct their business, form their government. People forget that.
now and also the fact of all of the civilized tribes, by the way, in the Civil War fought with the South. The Cherokee, I believe the Choctaw, they all aligned with.
Well, that stands to reason they lived in the South, especially the Cherokee. Why wouldn't they?
Yeah, and they also.
And I don't like how people say the 5 civilized tribes as if the other, let's see, that would be 559 other tribes were not civilized. It just that just irks me to no end.
Well, I mean, that's what they call. I mean, it's what they called them, and yeah, I mean, they called them because basically the tribes that weren't civilized, they were in conflict with the settlers. And,
I don't know. Look at the Navajo Nation. And just because they're in conflict with someone that's trying to take their land doesn't make them a bad, aggressive type of nation. They are defending themselves. Just.
yeah, I mean, look, and again,
Mhm.
the European settlers did what every other group did. I guess some would say we did it better, and and that is the past. That's already done. Anyway, we got Donning Armor back. Donning Armor, did you hear any of the conversation, and do you have anything to add?
Unfortunately, I'm technologically uh, stupid, and I'm trying to come up with an actual photo, but I can't upload an avatar. So, uh, no, I haven't seen those documentaries, so I can't. I have no comment on them.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I'll tell you something. I'm also ignorant. If it wasn't for Joey, I'd be lost in outer space. So
What?
Joey. I mean, I know.
Come on now.
yeah, but
I'll be quiet on it.
Joey guides a spaceship. Sometimes he takes us to planets that I may not always, want to go to. But you know what? No, he is. He's shown me quite a bit, and without him, I would probably not.
Now, some of those planets are not real. You know this to be true.
Yes. Well, that may be. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I know planet Earth.
Yes, we at least we have a ground to stand on, and that's good enough.
And planet Earth, and then this continent, and then this nation, and the state that I live in, and the city that I live in. It's gotten kind of bad, and Hollywood's become very woke, and I don't know if they want to listen or to hear anybody else's idea. I was talking to somebody who produces, helps produce The Real World. And I asked him, because it would be interesting if you were to get like a Proud Boy and an Antifa, or even a Trump supporter and a leftist on The Real World. And he was like saying, "Yeah, at this point in time, we could never do that because the powers that be don't want that." And back in the day, before the internet came around and before Trump won, they would have a person maybe like donning armor, and then maybe a black militant on The Real World, and to see how they would get along. But now there is no more social experiment. They just want you to obey.
Well, we made a video, and I did all the transcribing and put it up there where we did it, published an interview between Alex Haley and what was the other fellow's name?
Norman Lincoln Rockwell.
Lincoln Rockwell. And when these two had a conversation, and it was an interview that was published in Playboy magazine, and I don't know what it was, in the mid 60s, late 60s. And so we published that, but you would never, in the description, it was inflammatory then, but you would never see, it seems, you'd never seen our discussion like that now with two well-spoken people on very, very opposite ends of the spectrum. So that turned out to be a really good listen.
And we go to because Alex Haley's biggest claim to fame is the book Roots, and then the miniseries did much better than the movie, than the book. And anytime you turn a book into like a TV series or a movie, 3 to 4 times as many people are gonna see it than have ever read the book. That's from my understanding, statistically true. But it goes, and a lot of people don't know this, but the book Roots was plagiarized. Was a plagiarized work, and one of the things that Alex Haley left out. I mean, like the one thing that was kind of mythology, which was based on mythology, was the fact that there were whites came into Africa and captured black African slaves, and that's not what happened. The first part of that is a complete fabrication, and then the rest of it is like when they're on the ship. Which, look, people are going to rebel, and slavery was horrible, but it makes me think of what other things are untrue. And Roots 2, I think, is kind of a little bit of a better documentary. But the truth about Alex Haley is his father was a conservative, and his grandfather was also somewhat of a conservative. And I've heard that Alex Haley he kind of worked for the Republican, secretly worked for the Republican Party, and was an avid anti-communist. That's what people were saying about him, because he did write the book about Malcolm X. But I think some people say he was giving information to conservative groups. That's just a little. We have Little Nicky out there now. Little Nicky, from my understanding, comes from Britain. I don't know exactly how she came in contact with the show, but I certainly appreciate anybody listening to our show.
Oh, I thought that was a Dawning lead.
Well, Dawning said she was very fat, so but she actually is a fan of Dawning armor. I don't know if she actually, if that is a Dawning lead or not.
Yes, I know Little Nicky, but she found your show, I believe. You sent her a friend request or something to that, whatever you do on YouTube.
Oh.
So I found you through Little Nicky. It wasn't,
Oh.
It wasn't the other way around. And funny about that plagiarism, because Martin, sorry, apologize for that. Martin Luther King, he also plagiarized his dissertation and his famous speech, I Had a Dream. That was also plagiarized. And Nelson Mandela was a terrorist. They seem to choose just. Oh, and Martin Luther King apparently was a rapist, if not only a womanizer. It's funny, the heroes that they pick for themselves. Much love to the blacks.
Well, I mean, the truth is about Martin Luther King is he was a real philanderer, and now I never. Well, you know what? I didn't know if he was a rapist, but I knew that people considered him a sexual degenerate, and they've actually, and it's the Democrats who've, because they wanted to have his tapes released, and they basically refused. And since we've already said foul language, I've heard he's on tape to a woman saying that he's fucking for God tonight. And I think I've said that a few times with myself. So we both have had a try. I'm kidding. Good God, I'm going overboard here.
Well, you just can't make this stuff up. It's incredible, but it doesn't matter. They've found a new hero that can speak for them, and it's St. George Floyd, an honorable, decent black man.
Yeah.
It seems that for the life of them, they just really struggle with this. But I expect it, because they're not us. They do not subscribe to our values. So I expect nothing less of them.
Well, I would respectfully disagree with that, but that's just me. I think sometimes people put heroes out there who are not the most noble of people. I mean, JFK was not a like he was also a degenerate. Ted Kennedy, degenerate.
Catholic also.
Who?
the Kennedy family they're Catholics.
Yeah.
I think that plays a factor into it.
Well, I don't know about that. I just know that they were degenerates.
Wow. But that Nelson Mandela was a baby killer. He would put bombs at the railroad stations, and children and infants would be killed. People talk about him like he's such a peaceful man. That's such a load of crock. I mean, people need to wake up and really look at history.
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, history is rife with people doing very horrible and bad things all the way around. And if they look at people's sexual history, not going to get noticed. Now, I've heard that Martin Luther King, I've heard that but about him raping, but I mean, I heard that through the rumor mill. I don't know if that's true or not. Donning, do you have like better information on the fact that Martin Luther King was a rapist?
From what I've heard, he didn't actually rape the woman, but he was in the room while his friend was raping the woman and, you know, laughing about it essentially. But this is hearsay. I don't have any factual information. I can't think of it off the top of my head. I could find sources, but I don't know how to find sources on my cell phone while I'm on stream. So we'll just leave that there, and you guys can do your own digging.
Yeah, I've heard about that too. I remember in college, they uh, they talked about like information that, and a lot of people, it was really, because at the time I was about 19 years old when I first read some of that stuff, and I was still into my kind of hero worship to a degree. And now I don't worship anybody. I don't believe that we should have, personally, I don't believe we should have a holiday for any human being. We are a nation of laws, not of men. And if it were up to me, I don't, I mean, I know we have statues and stuff, but that's not a big point for me. I think that the Constitution, the right of freedom of speech, equal protection under the law, which is not respected by the left, is the most important thing to me. And for me, we are a nation of laws, not of men. And I don't think we should ever have a holiday after anybody, whether it be George Washington, Abraham Lincoln, Thomas Jefferson, Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, anybody. We are not a nation of men. We are a nation of laws. And we should basically, human beings should worship principles. Yeah, go ahead.
Where do those laws come from?
They come from men, but they come from flawed men.
Yeah, we all have flaws. But they tear down the statues of what race of people do they tear down the statues?
I'll agree with you. They tear down the statues of white people.
Yes. What would happen if we tore down the monuments and statues of Martin Luther King? We know what would happen, don't we?
Yeah, no, you're right on that.
Yeah, so just making a quick little point.
Yeah, I mean, look, I don't think you should tear down anything that's been taken up. I don't believe in vandalism at all, and if people want to have their statues up of anybody, I really don't care. But I do see in America, and what makes me even more angry is like I see it in Europe too. The BLM riots, they were taking down statues there. And most of the people, the people of color, about 99.99% of them, if not higher, that came to Europe, came by choice, not by slave ships or anything like that. And the whole Windrush generation that they were asked to come, I've heard is not true at all. these people came by choice, and there was they had the first Windrush generation was they had I guess undersold boat passages, and they had cheap fares to from Jamaica or from the West Indies to England, and it was more of a money making thing. And these Africans were not. I mean, these West Indians, these Africans from West India came, by choice, and they were not asked to come by the British government.
That's exactly what I said when Dennis asked me the question many streams back. It's capitalistic greed. It's the almighty GDP and subversion tactics from foreign nations that want the worst for us. It was never asked of these people what decent group of people would want their lands flooded with foreigners. It doesn't happen anywhere else in the world. It only happens in the Western world. Um, I'm not a conspiracy theorist. It just doesn't make any sense. The 1965 Act um, in the United States, it wasn't put to a vote. Nobody was asked that lived here. It was forced upon us, um, and it just seems to be convenient. Uh, Perhaps it's just coincidence that white nations are the only nations on the planet that seem to need more quote unquote diversity. And it's a bunch of nonsense.
Yeah, and I guess you don't believe in even a merit-based system of immigration. If it were up to you, I mean, if we're being honest, Donnie, because to me, I believe in a merit-based system and what is best for the American people. I think you believe that people should come from Western countries and be of European heritage.
I believe in sorry, I apologize. I believe it's 1776 Immigration Act, which clearly states only free white men of good character should be brought in. And even then you get trouble. Even then people were upset with the Irish when they came in large numbers. Even then they were upset with Italians that came in large numbers. You I don't mind trickling in, but we are of the same race, and eventually there is assimilation. It's easier, but it's still difficult. But when you bring people that are completely alien, the assimilation is far worse. It has dire consequences, and yeah, so uh, merit should play a role in it. Obviously, free white men of good character, but there's other stipulations as well. They need to be free. They can't be slaves. And they need to be um, white. It's just that's the way that the country was designed to be, and the more that it changes, the worse it's going to get. That's my opinion.
Well, yeah, I mean, and you know what? I think you're entitled to that opinion. I think merit, and I'm of the belief that maybe they won't assimilate, but I believe that their children can assimilate. Unfortunately, what we do have is woke indoctrination and hatred of white people and people of European descent. But I think leftism does that, and leftism creates division, and it creates animosity and hatred. And if we are to
Can,
survive,
can,
yeah, go ahead.
can you please just what is a leftist exactly? Because I know we use these terms, but uh, what's the difference between a leftist and a rightist in your mind?
Well, there are different types of leftists. I mean, there are, and it does kind of interchange, but And there's a difference between a liberal and a leftist, but a leftist is more culturally. A leftist has the same economic views as a liberal, but a leftist has cultural views that are a certain way, and they believe in. I mean, today's leftists believe in wokeism. They do not believe in freedom of speech. They do not believe in due process, and they're very much moral authoritarian. And they believe that that people should bend to their moral will, and their moral will is that this is a colonial nation, and that European colonialism is the most evil thing on the face of the earth, and it must be crushed, and the children of the colonialist must be punished.
I certainly see that in many leftists. However, you have to say that that definition is rather muddled, that it's confusing. I certainly see that in. Oh, I've got a repeater.
Oh, sorry. When he came out of the stream, he didn't mute himself. Go ahead.
Welcome back, JP. And where did Woodstock go? I hope she comes back in too. I love that woman.
Stock crawled back into the hole she came out of, but I am back, and we'll continue the conversation.
Just really quick, and I'll end with this, guys. That is very confusing. It's hard to understand. And I agree with you, Brian, on what you said. I'm just saying that that's too complicated of an issue to divide people on. And we need division. Believe it or not, we need it. I think that a much more sound and easy explanation for how we go about solving the problem rather than discussing the problem is that, well, like I said, the 1776 Act of the Immigration Act, we do it on race. And we can have our arguments in between our racial ethnicities, our ethnic groups, in groups. We can do that. That's easy. That's natural. That's normal. It occurs naturally. You have to, in fact, force integration in order to, and then not only do you force integration, but then you have to back it up over who knows how long, centuries maybe. It doesn't work because we're different. So I make it very simple. I love white people. That's where I stand. So I'm not going to define what the rightists believe and what the leftists believe and geopolitics and all this other garbage. It's too much for the average person. What the average person can understand, me white, you white, that's it. I don't know if you look like you have a confused are you I hope that that's easy enough.
I'm just thinking.
Okay, no problem. Yeah. So the more simplified you can get something, especially these types of matters, which are incredibly confusing when we have propaganda coming from Hollywood, propaganda coming from the media, from foreign interests, subverters, bankers, the elites, as you call them, all that stuff the average person can't, it's just too much for them to really think about. And it's too much for me to think about. But what I can think about is I'm white. I love white people. That seems easy enough. Mike Free.
Well, I don't know if I don't. I respectfully disagree with that opinion.
Well, you have your philosophical positions on morality. How many average Joes out there do you think pontificate on, uh, you know, morality and philosophical positions on the subject? Do they really? No, they're going out there, they're working, they're doing their thing. They're just not interested. They don't have time for that. So simplify it. Simplify things. Like free.
The rules of morality are rather simple, and they're very few things of morality that people have to live up to. And they're not easy. They're simple. I mean, it's easier said than done. But there are simple rules to apply within life that I think will make, for the most part, people happier.
It,
Moderation. Go
is,
ahead.
is murder bad?
Murder is evil.
Murder is evil. What if I'm a Muslim and I'm a subscriber of Islam and you're a kafir? Is murder bad?
That is relativism, and there are Western values and cultural values that people have to adhere to, but they don't. There are people of many different racial backgrounds that adhere to Western cultural values.
And there's many that don't.
That's true. And they can go somewhere else.
So what are we going to do? Forcefully remove these millions of people that have different values and senses of morality than we have? Are we going to just ship them off? I don't think that it's that easy.
You know what? I mean, you can have less coming in, and you certainly can perhaps slow the tide. We're in difficult times right now, Donning, to a degree. We're in very trying times. People 50, 60 years ago, the average American with his wife, if they made a combined income of $30,000, could buy a home for $50,000 to $60,000. That's not true today.
Yes, but we were talking about morality. Now you're speaking about
Well,
monetary.
I'm
I agree with what you just said. Sorry, I apologize. I agree with what you just said, but we can't switch back and forth. The fact of the matter is, let people make culture. People make nations. People make culture, and it's those people, those specific people, that set the standards in every single way, in every facet. And we need to acknowledge this. I am more closely related to you. You are English. I am English. I'm Irish and Scottish and Finnish and Swede. I don't know. You said that you're Irish. I believe maybe you said Scottish. We are more closely related. We have similar values. We have similar ways of being. I've heard it referred to as biospirit. And that is that our biological makeup, because we are similar, create the types of places, nations that we create. And that's why those of a different biospirit create different ones. That is simple. My little tiny brain can understand it. I can't understand all the other stuff, and the whole financial structure and everything is a byproduct of this notion that we're all human beings and anybody can assimilate, anybody can be American. That's nonsense. It wasn't intended to be, and it never should have been, but that's where we are, and that's why we find ourselves in such trouble. I'm sorry for interrupting you. I truly apologize. I just had to get it out there.
Well, no, I do thank you for that. That's something to ponder. But, you know, when the Constitution was written and the Bill of Rights were written, you know, there were people that struggled and agonized with these laws and these things. And things are not done in a knee-jerk reaction way, and not even in a simple way. And sometimes when you agonize and you struggle with the most complex, you come to the most simple. I am not at a point where I can accept your view of America. I do say that I believe that you have a right to express your views, and you should have a right to express your views as anybody else without fear of cancellation or punishment. And that's not true today. And I believe that the information age, which social media should be putting in there in Section 230, should have been making possible that we have freedom of speech and freedom of thought and freedom to debate our ideas, is not the case anymore. The information age has turned into the age of censorship and punishment, and that is really a sad case.
Yeah, yes. Punishment for who? That's what I'm trying to get at. And I keep saying this. Listen, Jesse Lee Peterson is a black man. He says things that are far more controversial than anything I've ever heard you say, but he's allowed to get away with it. Why? Jim Goad said it best. I don't know if I'm repeating myself at this point. Jim Goad said it best. Your skin color is a gang tattoo. Like it or not, you have to take sides. When you go into prison, you don't choose who you are. It's your skin color that chooses who you are. I know that you want to live in this utopia where people are actually rational and reasonable, but they're not. They're just not. And that's not going to change. Evolution works over millions of years. And we've progressed to a point where we need to accept the fact of the matter that human beings are excuse me, are tribalistic. We're tribalistic in nature, we're tribalistic at heart. I know that you want to avoid that because you don't like it, and I don't like it either. I love everyone as well, and it's just, I think you need to really ponder this. Your skin color is a gang tattoo. You have joined a gang, whether you like it or not. That's the way of the world. There's no changing it. I wish we could all live and hold arms and sing kumbaya, but we're not going to. So I've expressed this view till I'm blue in the face, but it never sinks in with white people because white people don't think in these terms. But I just think that we need to start thinking in these terms. So I hope JP, come in here. Come on, man.
Joe, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I'm actually listening. I'm just a little disconnected from some of these areas of conversation, but no, I'm listening to what you're saying. Did you put a cap on your comment, or are you done, or are you still going? Because it was actually good.
No, I'm done, but I want to bring you into it. I mean, you're in here. This is your show and Brian's show.
I
You
appreciate
guys do your thing.
This is Brian's bread and butter right here. I when it comes to these sort of issues, I see things so differently. But I'll start contributing. Where it counts. Right now, Brian, you must have some response to that.
I am a person that believes and wants to believe that man, because Donning talked about nature, that man can rise above his nature and man can face the truth and face the wilderness and face the greatness of his potential. And I strive to meet people who can do that and who can bring that out in me. And that is my wish. And maybe at some point I maybe I'll see things the way Donning sees them. At this point in my time, I do not. I want to bring out the best in me, and I want to bring out the best in all of humanity and all of those who live near me in my block and in my city and in my country and then within the world. And maybe I'm foolish. Maybe I'm a starry-eyed optimist. I believe in certain hard truths that aren't being told today. But I also believe that we're still dealing with this human experiment called America, and in some ways even called the West, and how we handle things and how we handle truth and reality. And Dawning, I'll let you get the last word, and then I'll wrap it up because you may still disagree with that, but and maybe I am a starry-eyed optimist, but you only live once and then you're dead. And do I want to be a person that only has love for my own kind? Well, I have love for anyone that is decent, and I've been screwed over by my own family members who've hurt my own family members, and those that have been close to me have hurt me the worst. And some of those who have brought me out of the darkness have been people who are not of my family and not of my race. And Dawning, I'll give you the last word if you want to add on into that, and then I will end it. And if Joey has anything to add.
Okay, well, yes, I do believe that you are a wide-eyed, starry-eyed optimist, and you want the best for everyone. I do too. I do as well. So, I mean, there's not much more that I can say on the subject because, listen, you might get 100 views on this show, you might get 1,000, you might get 1,000,000. In the grand scope of things, you're not going to change the world, bro. What you can do is you can change yourself first and foremost, then your family and friends, the people that you love. And then maybe you can influence the community around you. That is the best method to go about changing the world. Just sitting there and thinking that if only everybody everywhere thought like I did, or behaved in a manner that I would think was the right way. The world doesn't work that way. The world spins, and it's too big for any one man to truly have an impact. I don't care if you're Elon Musk or some other rich billionaire. You can make changes, but the world keeps spinning, and you can't stop that. And we need to begin to realize that we have to have, as white folk, an in-group preference. And we need to start looking after ourselves, because white people are not the world. They're 8% of it. And they have their values, they have their culture. There's nothing that we're going to do that's going to turn non-whites into whites. They will continue doing what they do. And, they have that right as well. So let them do their thing. We need to start looking inwards, not outwards. And I will drop the mic with that out of fear of.
You've done well. You've done well. No worries. That was quite a comment. And gives, I think there's a lot there to consider. I happen to feel that if everybody woke up tomorrow and knew their origin, we'd have a complete shift in our world. It's not going to happen, but it's as simple as that. I think we all come from the same divine spark, and we have one timeline where we begin with that first breath and it ends with our final expiration. And that's all I'm going to say for now. Thank you for the excellent show, Brian.
Well, yeah, and maybe I am a starry-eyed optimist. I know that I cannot, and I'm one man, and probably this. If this breaks, like the last show that we did with you, got about 50 views, and if it breaks more than that, I'm always kind of happy. I know that YouTube censors the algorithm, but the first person I want to change is myself, and I have no. Being kind of a stoic, I have no control over my reputation, and either they're telling me the truth or they're lying about me, or they're misinformed. And sometimes I can defend myself and they'll have a different understanding, but those different understandings take time. And it is a struggle. I do believe right now that your voices are necessary because I want to hear the truth. I want to hear people being real. You know, Black militants are allowed to say whatever they want. You, as a person that is I would say, somewhat of a racial realist, you should be able to say what you want. And that's just the way it is. People should be real. And unfortunately, we're not at that place where people are allowed to just be real with one another. People are so emotional and they want to shut the conversation off really before any substance happens. And this has happened recently and it's gotten worse. I mean, ever since the George Floyd incident, it's just, they've come after, and they have primarily come after whites. But
It was far before the George Floyd incident. Far before that.
oh no,
It's
no, you're right on that. You're right on
400
that.
years ago. They've
You're
never assimilated. Sorry.
Well, I'm not talking about assimilation. I'm talking about the freedom of speech and the freedom of thought. Each time an incident happens, whites are punished and whites are blamed, and we're always blamed for the worst of what we do. We're always blamed for our outliers, which all groups have crazy outliers and vicious people. I mean, there was Dylan Roof, but there was also Colin Ferguson. Colin Ferguson came from the West Indies, never dealt with white people ever, but he came from the West Indies and he went on a train and killed a group of white people in New York. And, Dylan Roof was a murderer too. Dylan Roof is going to be put to death. Colin Ferguson, I think he's still alive. I think he's in Rikers Island. I remember people. There was a documentary. There was a person who did a retro on a channel that did a retro documentary on him, and they were complaining that he didn't get his Burger King like Dylan Roof. And my argument with him is, why don't you get him one? I wouldn't give Dylan Roof shit, and blacks actually praise Colin Ferguson. I don't know any white person that praises, even some of the most racist white people, or so-called racist white people, that ever praise the murderer Dylan Roof. I'll let you say, and then I'll end it.
No, and I don't. I'm just trying to say that the more that we force integration, the more Dylan Roofs and the more Colin Fergusons we're going to see. And it's inevitable. I see it coming. I want to avoid it, but there's really not much I can do. So I'll leave it with that. And you finish it up, Brian. Great show. JP, much love, brother. You guys have a good night.
Well, thank you very much. And like, subscribe, leave a comment down below, and also visit our website at transparencyandmerit.com. And hopefully we can have honest and true discussions and debates out there, which are truly missing within this society. So thank you for listening. And like I said, like, subscribe, and even share this video if you on other platforms. Thank you.